Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Humans of Horses podcast. My name is Elle, and I am the human of three wonderful horses, Fionn, Zirconia, and Morgan. Now, I must confess, every time I do that introduction, I keep wanting to say the Cognitive Aggression podcast, because that's what I originally was going to call this podcast. And I don't know why, it's just always in my head every time. And I'm just like, no, it's Humans of Horses. So I have to say it very slowly and then hope that I get it right. Anyway, I am now back in the Netherlands. Those of you who follow me on Instagram will know that I recently moved Fionn, Zirconia, and Morgan to the UK. And that is exactly what we're going to talk about in this episode. So I think I'm probably going to talk about the more logistical side first and then go into the actual process and like how I prepared them. And the reason why I want to share this story with you, which divulges a little bit away from my chats with other people, because it's just me this time. The reason is because I've talked to quite a few people after the move, and yeah, people basically just encouraged me to share this experience with you because I moved my horses on a 12-hour road trip across 3 countries and under the sea with little training, essentially. So that's quite interesting. But I will kick this off with a little bit the quote unquote boring side. So just sort of the journey as to why/how I ended up doing this and my experience with choosing a transporter, and the process as well, because obviously this is now post-Brexit, so the rules and regulations are a little bit more complex. And when you first look at it online, it's quite overwhelming. So I just thought I'd share that side, and then we'll go into the more like how I prepared them and what I did to help them with the move. So I'm going to wind back the clock to 2021, which is when I first bought Fionn. So at some point I will have his old owner on board, on the podcast. I'm talking like I'm at work now, but on the podcast, and we will chat a lot of exciting things. I'm really, really, really excited to record that episode at some point. But yeah, when I basically suggested I would buy Fionn and take care of him initially in the Netherlands, we discussed the possibility of him moving to my mum. Even at that moment, that was sort of our plan A initially, but then I suggested, well, why don't I take him? So that actually became our plan A, and my mum was plan B. Because I did say, obviously, things are a bit complicated with the Brexit, and I did look into it. And at that time, they were really working out what horse importing and exporting would look like between the UK and an EU country. So it just seemed a bit complicated. And I was like, okay, I'm going to give this horse ownership thing a go and take it from there. But I knew, of course, in the back of my mind that one day Fionn would move to the UK with me, or I hoped that he would move to the UK with me. And I began researching. So I think I was in a couple of Facebook groups. I think there was one that's something like moving pets to the UK after Brexit, something like that. I honestly can't remember the name of it. I'm not in it anymore because I don't really need it. But I asked on there, like, had anyone moved horses? And some people pointed me, in fact, most people. No, looking back on it, I don't think any other company was suggested. But basically everyone who commented recommended a very well-known transporter. And I thought, oh, great, they sound like they're really fantastic. So I got in contact with them and asked what the process was. I explained the situation. I said, like, I'm not going to be moving him just yet, but I'm just putting feelers out there to see what the deal is. And yeah, what happened then? They replied with quite a long email and it had a lot about like when you've bought a horse and are importing it to the UK as part of the sale process. So I wrote back and said, this is not that case. Like, this is me moving my household, and the horse is forming part of my household as I transfer back to the UK. So then there was just some strange emails, and I just thought, I'll just let it go for now and I'll pick it up in a while. So I did, and then I emailed them again and I asked for a quote because then I think at that point Zirconia came along and I was like, I just wanted to know the cost for like two horses instead of one, and if anything in the process has changed. And again, like there was just some weird responses. And then I got connected to someone on Facebook who moved her horse, and her horse was unregistered. Um, and she just said, like, don't use that company. Like, she had a really bad experience with them and it was really stressful and complicated. So I thought, okay, that kind of confirms that sort of weird gut feeling that I had, that something just wasn't quite right with them, because I kind of didn't really pursue it further. And I didn't look for an alternative because I knew at the time, like, I was staying in the Netherlands for a bit. So I was like, I'll just deal with this a little bit later on. I'm not going to deal with it right now. Otherwise, it's just too much. So, yeah, I kind of let it lie for a little bit. And then about a year ago, at that point, I then had Morgan as well. So I suddenly went from two to three. And that's when you can't just have one vehicle, you might need to have two or a lorry, basically. Um, so I had a little Google and I had a little search around, and then I found another company. I got in contact with them, and they're also quite experienced in horse transports all over the world, and especially by air as well. But not that I'd be doing that because I don't think I could ever afford to do that. It's really expensive. But I I got in contact with them and they seemed really good. And I had a little thing with Fion's passport because basically uh Zirconia has a German passport but was born in the Netherlands. I don't know why she has that. It's very weird. Um, but yeah, her passport was kind of okay, and Morgan's was very new, so there was like absolutely no concerns for Morgan because it was a brand new passport and it was also Dutch, so all hunky dory with her. Fion's was like a really old Belgian one, and it just looked a little bit different and a little bit weird, so I just wanted to find out if everything was okay because I've read these rules about importing horses to UK multiple times over the years, and like it's changed, and finding the information that you want is really, really, really hard as well. So I just emailed them, sent them the passports, and was like, can you let me know if, in Fion's case, quarantining applies or not? Because if he does need to be quarantined, what that meant was he'd have to be quarantined for 30 days prior to traveling. So, yeah, I'd always said in my mind if he needed to be quarantined, I wouldn't take him. Which, yeah, it's even now it's like it's really hard to come to terms with that, but I knew that if I had to quarantine him, he'd have to be at a really specific facility, and yeah, he would have had to live in a stable for 30 days. On his own, I just think that would have been really detrimental to his mental and in extension physical well-being. Um, so I always said to myself, I'm not putting him through that if it means that I then get to have him, because I don't feel like that was the best thing for him. Um, And it was a hard thing to acknowledge, but I stood by the belief that me not taking him, if that was the case, was the best thing for him. Even though I wouldn't know where he'd go or who he'd be with, I didn't think it was fair. So that's what I said to myself. And I sent them the passports and they came back to me and said, yeah, we don't see any issues with them. So I thought, great, fantastic, he'll be fine. All the meanwhile, I think it was about a year ago, or even a little bit before then, I had this feeling he might not come with me. Like it was just this gut feeling. I was like, maybe he's not coming. And why that feeling was there and how it would present itself, I was unsure. Like, there were moments, and there's photos as well from their time, and I will use the name now because they have their own Instagram account and well worth follow because it's the place that Fionn, Ziccone and Morgan were living is called Prioritised Rima, and it's now really come into its own. And that's, if you want to spell that, that's Rima, so Paradise Rima on Instagram, named after the horses of the two lovely people who run it, who are Sharon and Lisa, and their horses are Ringo and Am, so Rima, that's where it comes from. But yeah, when I look at photos of Fionn there, it was like, yeah, this is his place. You know, this is the place in the Netherlands where he has found a sense of belonging, possibly for the first time in his life. So I was like, is he gonna even leave here? And I didn't know. So this feeling just sat there and I wasn't sure how it would play out. But this transport company had said he was fine. So I was like, well, he is coming with us. But then there was still this feeling that he wasn't coming with us. It was really weird. And I kind of had said it to Sharon and Lisa. I was like, I don't think he's coming with us or with me. But I can't explain why. And fast forward the clock, I was told to get in contact with this transport company 3 to 4 weeks before the transport. Me being me, I went for 4, but it was just under then when they replied, it was under 30 days from the agreed date of transport. And they turned around and said, yeah, we've been looking into it. Fionn needs to be quarantined. And when I read that email, I just I just panicked. I was like, I think at first I was shocked. Then I was very frustrated because I deliberately done everything I could to clarify his situation up front. And then they turn around and say, and at that point it was then 3 weeks before our agreed transfer date, that he needs to be quarantined. And they explained what that meant, and I didn't know what to do. I really did not know what to do. Because I was like, I'd said he wouldn't be coming with me if he had to be quarantined. So yeah, I cried. I cried a lot. Because Fionn, as annoying as he can be sometimes with his personality, he's just him, and like he changed my life just by being in it, which from what I understand is is what it means to have a heart horse. And I don't know if every person gets to meet their heart horse in this lifetime, but Fionn is mine. Like, he changed everything for me. And I have so much love for this horse. Like, even when he's being his quote unquote annoying self, he's just him, and he doesn't need to be anything more than just being him. And yeah, I was faced with this whole he's not coming with me thing that I'd been feeling. And I didn't know what to do. I spoke to my husband. I spoke to Sharon and Lisa. I spoke to some other people who knew and loved us. And I spoke to Fionn's old owner. And she replied to me with a voice note. And I actually have typed it out because what she said was so beautiful that I want to share it all with you. And hopefully she doesn't mind me sharing it, because if I ever get round to writing a book, which I hope I do at some point, this will definitely be a part of that. So I want to read it to you. So I called the piece, or this chapter, which I've ended up naming the podcast episode more or less the same title. I called it A Journey Home. So here we go. I have this feeling it will be all right. Fionn knows what to do and knows his way. If you have to put him in a quarantine in a small stable, which I get it, you really don't want that for him. I have been thinking about that, and no, it's not ideal, and it doesn't suit him. That is really true. But if I think about you two together and him living in the UK with you, I still think that would make him happier than anything else in the world. Being able to stay with the horses he loves and the human he loves, his herd. So maybe that's worth putting him through some misery, because you know that afterwards it will get better. Sometimes we have to go through some misery in life. If we accept this, always a part of things that we do and love, we always have to go through moments in life that scare us and that we don't like. But it may bring us to something better. We just don't know where yet. You are the leader of your herd, and you know what is best for them. Think about what moving him to the UK and coming with you will bring to Fionn. He gets to live with you forever, which is something that will make him very happy. He gets to live with Morgan and Zirconia forever too. He gets to stay with his family, the family that he made. The journey to the UK will be hard, but you are bringing him to a lifetime he will love, and that you will love too. You all can live in full happiness, which I don't think you are quite able to do here in the Netherlands. You have felt very happy, but not fully happy. You have always said you would move back eventually. I think you and Fionn deserve the opportunity to explore that part of yourselves with each other together, your relationship together in a place of full happiness. That's worth the struggle of the journey there. Is moving him ideal? No. Does it fit him? Not at all. If we could do it another way, a better way, we would. But consider how much is that difficult journey versus a lifetime with you. He knows you, and he knows his herds. He will get over the stress of it. He will get over anything just to be with you. He's very strong in that way. The only job you have is preparing him for something like this. But also, when you are over there together, you make sure that he is okay and that he is happy. It's okay to be a little bit scared and to go through rough periods, because they are making us stronger. The most important thing to realise and consider for yourself is how much a quarantine period versus a lifetime of happiness will mean to you both. He will get to have a lifetime in his horse family with you on the other side of it. That is worth something, even though it's not perfect to get there. Every animal can accept a situation the way it is because they have to, even if it scares them. Getting through it will be worth it because his life will be so much worth living by being together with you. You'll give him an amazing place to live. You'll give him a place to run, a place where he can be fully himself, a landscape that fits him, that suits him better than what he has here. If I look into my heart and I think about him being there in the UK, it makes me so happy, as I have always been whenever I have thought about him being with you. And that is that little extract. And as I sit here reading it back, I'm actually crying because it's just so beautiful. And now, having done the move and seeing him there, it means the world. It means everything. So yeah, my emotions were a bit all over the place, but what Fion's old owner and my husband both said is that whatever he has to go through to get to the UK, he will get through it because it's worth giving him a lifetime with me. And I've had the honour of knowing Fion now. I've had the honour of knowing Fion for nearly 5 years. And I would not be who I am today, both personally and professionally, and I've said this over and over again, I would not be who I am today without that horse. So I'm just very grateful, very grateful that we did it. And the reason why we did it, or why we could do it, and why things shifted, and why things suddenly just flowed into place, was because of the human-to-human connection, the power of human-to-human connection. Which leads me beautifully on to explaining what happened next. I might have to cut out that sniffle. If I don't cut out that sniffle, enjoy the sniffle. Let me carry on. So, what happened next? I posted on Instagram in my stories about what was happening, and there are so many people in my life that I think almost everyone I meet in the horse world, everyone I connect with, and then my friends, of course, as well, I'm just incredibly grateful for. And I do believe that everybody that we have an interaction with, no matter how small, is there to somehow impact our life. So on that note, I've always been completely like, I've had over my whole life, of as long as social media has existed, I've always had quite a conflicting relationship with it. And I've gone through phases, particularly when I was a bit younger, of deleting my account, reactivating it, deleting it, reactivating it, and just not being sure of the whole thing. But since the horses, I've found a little bit more peace with it because I've found people who are like me. And if it hadn't have been for whatever algorithm or post or whatever it was that brought Poppy from How to Speak horse. Hang on, I might need to edit that, Poppy. I'm really sorry. My brain is just slightly fried. How to Speak Horse. I was right. Poppy Peach from How to Speak Horse podcast. I hope you're listening to this, because I am beyond grateful for Instagram, um, connecting to me to you and you to me in some way that not only led to us recording two really nice podcast episodes, but also led to me meeting Caroline from Mates Rates Horse Transport. Because if it hadn't have been for that connection, I would never have had the option of using Caroline's to transport my horses to the UK. And I think as an extension of that, Theon wouldn't have come with me. So from the bottom of my heart, Poppy, Caroline, I'm incredibly grateful for you both. Because, yeah, I posted this on my Instagram story and Poppy responded and told me about Caroline. So I got in contact with Caroline, and she said basically just call me. So and I don't like phone calls. I will admit that right now. I struggle with phone calls, and I think it comes from the fact that I have lived for a very long time now, over a decade. I have lived abroad, and I don't like calling people when I can't talk their language. And I know Caroline and I are both English, but it literally terrifies me to talk to someone on the phone. And I am getting a little bit better at it now, especially because I'm starting to move back to UK and I've actually had to call people on the phone. So I was really nervous of talking to Caroline on the phone, but we did it. I called her. I pressed that button early on a Saturday or Sunday morning. I can't remember now. In March, and we had a wonderful conversation, I think for either an hour or over an hour, where we discussed everything, and she told me about herself and we talked about the horses. She asked questions about them, about their experience with trailer loading and their personality, and I just felt instantly comfortable with her. And I came off that phone call having shared like some quite intricate details about my horses. Um, but I came off that phone call knowing that she was my person. She was the person who I could put the trust and the responsibility of moving my horses to the UK. And I'm not going to use the word horses now, I'm going to use the word herd. Of moving my herd to the UK. I'd found my person. And it was like suddenly that feeling of Fionn not coming with us just vanished. Because I'd found Caroline. And with the extension of that, I found Justin too. And if it hadn't have been for Caroline and Justin, it wouldn't have worked out the way it did. So, on that note, that's sort of the how would you say, the logistical side of moving them. I'm now going to transition and talk into the how we went about preparing them for this huge, humongous move, because that's quite interesting too. So, in an ideal world, I'd have my own trailer, or someone where the horses lived would have their own trailer, or somebody who teaches me would have their own trailer in which we could practice. That's like the ideal situation. And there are companies in the Netherlands who provide trailer loading like lessons or experience sessions, whatever you want to call it. But I didn't use them because they're really expensive, and I was like, I can't justify paying that every single time just to do a little bit of trailer loading. So I thought, okay, it is what it is. I'm just going to use the knowledge and resources I have available to me to prepare my horses as best as I can for this move. And what I knew was important was like sort of the very basic um, way to do that was to take care of their mental and physical well-being, to make sure that they were in the best possible place mentally and physically that they could be for that move. So I think it was towards the end of 2024, my wonderful instructor, so I have two wonderful teachers in the Netherlands, Dami and Rianne. And Dami is from Dami's Training Instructie. You can follow her on Instagram. She's really great. And she also has her own Instagram for her horse, who is Haflinger Stack. And then Rianne is Academic Andalusia, which you can find on Instagram. She's just fantastic. Please give her a follow. Give both of them a follow, of course. But Dami said to me, because she'd said a little while back that she's working on trying to get her trailer license, but then it was very busy, trying to book like the exam and stuff, so it hadn't really happened yet. And I was like, oh well, that's annoying and frustrating, is what it is, kind of thing. But then she kind of said at the end of 2024, she said to me, that she I think she'd either done it or was about to do it, and she passed, and that meant she could finally drive her trailer. And then we sort of said, kind of out of nowhere, we were like, oh, let's do some practice. So that was really great. So in January, we started practicing, but I think due to both of our schedules, we only ended up being able to do it about 3 times, which is fine. But what was so valuable was so at Paddock Paradise Rima, you have like the road that you drive on to get there. So like the street, I don't know, whatever it is, the street. And then there's like one gate, and then there's maybe 20 meters, I think, of like a concrete path is the best way to describe it, with like grass either side, and then you have the gate for the actual place. So you actually kind of have a little area that is enclosed, where we could bring the trailer in, close the front gate, and then bring Fionn, Zicani, and Morgan into that space where they could just eat on the grass and chill and get used to the trailer being there. But we kept the gate open so that they could go back in if they wanted to. And yeah, basically the first lesson, all we did was we had the halters on them and we had them there, and I'd kind of just pick one, ask them to come to the trailer. They kind of had a little look at it. And interestingly, Fionn and Morgan both started doing like the same stuff that they do on a pedestal, when I kind of offer them the space to go on the pedestal and kind of say to them, you just do what you want, I'm going to reward you for doing some stuff. That's what I kind of call like creativity training. Like, so you're giving space to their creativity and letting them kind of do what they want, and giving them a food reward for doing whatever it is that they do. So they actually started doing a little bit of that, and so that was quite fun because we made it into a game. And Fionn in particular really impressed me, because in the past I've seen him completely freak out a trailer and like not go anywhere near it. And then when he's been on it, he's often extremely stressed and like not like just overloaded and overwhelmed, and not able to handle his emotions. So yeah, it was actually really nice to see him showing his creative side and really just having that time with the trailer with absolutely zero expectations or pressure. It was just like, we're just hanging out, we're having a bit of fun, we're making it a little bit of a game. You don't have to go on it. We're just having a sniff and exploring it. And that was so valuable. Like, so valuable, and they did incredibly well. Like that first time, I was really amazed. And I think even with Fionn, he stepped a little bit inside, and Zir as well. Zir was so funny because she was just kind of like, I've done this before, like I'm good, I don't need to practice. So I was like, okay, well, we're giving the other two a break, so let's just do a little bit of something here and then I'll let you be. um so that was a really nice experience. Then the subsequent two lessons, we did progress a little bit more. Like we got Fionn and Zir actually inside and then backed them out of the trailer. Um, they both actually went fully in, which was really cool. Fionn even fell once walking out because he's a little bit of a klutz, but he didn't freak out. He did so good, and I was so proud of him. It was a lot for them though, because they were tired afterwards. Like I remember sending photos to Damie being like, look, they're so sleepy. Um, but it was fine. And yeah, I was really happy with how those lessons went. So we had those three lessons and they were just fun. They were very relaxed and they were very fun. Um, so then on top of that, the next thing I kind of did was like, I made sure they were all, how would I say, like, because winter is obviously a very challenging period for the horses, especially if they're outdoors because of the weather and the wind and the rain and the cold and yada yada. So I just made sure that I took care of their mental and physical well-being like throughout the winter period. So for Fionn and Zir, that looked like managing their blanket schedules, making sure that they felt really good in their bodies. With Fionn, I gave him valerian over the winter to help keep him a little bit calmer, and it did help, even though he still had some episodes of excitement. Overall, it did help. Zir, I made sure that she had her protein because she can quite easily lose muscle and she does need extra protein in her diet. So I made sure she had pea protein is what I fed her. And she was looking really good. Like I was really proud, and I still am really proud with how she looks because this was the first winter since I've had her where she's had a really shiny coat and she's maintained muscle mass. She hasn't lost weight. And when shedding season started, I increased the protein I gave her because I noticed that she lost a little bit of muscle mass. So I just gave her a little bit extra each day. So she was in really, really good shape. Morgan and Fionn were in really good shape. Like Morgan had itchy skin. Like I think she gets quite dry skin in the winter. So I had been giving her, what had I been giving her? I think there was this, well, turmeric, that was it. That's what I started with, turmeric with black pepper. Um, and then I switched to marigolds because I try and not give the same herb for the same quote unquote symptom or ailment. I try and not give the same herb consistently. I will give one herb and then change the herb that I'm giving for that specific thing. So then I did a bit of research. Marigold was what I then replaced the turmeric with to give her a break from that. I made sure that their immune systems were well supplemented and supported. I made sure that their guts were healthy by giving them like gut-friendly foods. I'm not going to list brands here because it's specific to the Netherlands. But if you are interested, just message me. And I can tell you, like if you're in the Netherlands, I can tell you what it is I've fed them, and what I found has helped. Then the other thing I did is I just gave time to them. Like I let them be them. I'd show up each day and like see what it is that they wanted. one other thing I did was I thought, what do I have that kind of mimics a trailer, but not really, because I don't have a trailer. And their shelter is actually a shipping container, and half of the shipping container was space for them to stand in, and half of it was their hay storage, because the hay was stored in there. So there was like this green net to close off the hay. And I realized if I closed one of the container's doors, it was quite dark in there and claustrophobic, so it's kind of like a trailer. So I did a couple, like really not that many sessions because I actually just kind of forgot to do them. But I did a couple of sessions where, particularly with Fion, where I was like asking him in, asking him to back out, asking him in, getting him to stand there calmly, asking him back out. And I maybe stuck to like a 5 minute session of that. And I think I did that a handful of times. Um, and then yeah, that's basically more or less it. Then the last thing I wanted to have, because uh, I don't know if any listeners on here will, well, those who know me personally know for sure that what I do is a job as an airline pilot, and the way we are trained is to, well, I remember the words of one of my theoretical knowledge instructors back in my initial training, which would have been in 2016 now. Um, he used to say, plan for worst, hope for best. And that's kind of how I approach things in life. I like to be well prepared to handle potential scenarios that could come up. So we kind of call it in aviation, we call it threat and error management. Um, so my threat that I could perceive was Fion just being like absolutely chaotic and rearing and not being able to stay in a trailer, or not loading or whatever. So for me, it was really important because basically last time I saw him in a trailer was when I bought him in 2021, and the transporter actually refused to transport him unless he was sedated because his behavior got so violent in the trailer just as we'd loaded him and started to move off that the transporter was just like, I'm not taking him. He has to be sedated. So the vet was called, intramuscular sedation was given. He was loaded. We got him to his new home, and that was that. So I thought, right, Fion's going to have to be sedated. And I talked to Caroline about it because she has a lot of experience working with different horses and different situations. And she talks to me about all the different types that you can possibly have and like how they affect the horse and yada yada. And we basically agreed our sort of plan would be to give so I would have a light sedative paste, a heavier sedative paste, and then an intramuscular as a last resort. Um, and yeah, there was a bit of chaos and stress around that in the week leading up to the move because I had managed to get hold of some, and my vet had given me the light sedative paste to try. And I noticed on the girls, like it had a little bit of an effect, but on Fion, it basically felt like it had almost no effect. And I tested it by giving it to him and doing something that I know would cause him a little bit of stress, which was taking Zirconia out on the lane for a walk. So I actually took her out, I hid her out of sight, and I could kind of spy around the corner and see Fion without him seeing us. And he was stressed. So I thought, interesting, this does not work for him. So I then tried to source some sedatives, but it was actually really difficult. And my vet only gave me one tube of the heavy sedative paste for Fion. But I thought, well, that doesn't seem like it's really satisfactory, and I'm not sure if I need the lighter paste for the girls. So I was all a bit like, I don't really know what's going on, and I was stressing about it. And then I was put in contact with somebody else who was a vet, and she actually got me various types of sedatives because I explained the whole situation. I was like, I just want them just in case I need them because it's a long journey. They have very little trailer practice, and I just want the reassurance that I have something there just in case. Because one way or another, this move has to happen on the specific day. So it's interesting because I sourced these sedatives, and when I was trying to source them, I received I reached out on a Facebook community in the Netherlands to kind of ask like where do you get the sedatives from? Um, and what types to kind of use. And I had zero positive comments. I had a lot of people very angry at me, wondering like basically why on earth was I using sedatives. I had people being like, you should have a trailer, it's your responsibility to practice, yada yada yada. And I'm like, yes, in an ideal world I would have a trailer. I would practice every day until the move to make sure that they were okay. But the thing is, I don't live in an ideal world where I can afford to have a trailer, or B, I was at a place where other people who I was uh yarding, is that a word? Like yarding with, had a trailer, because the thing is, none of us do. So I couldn't just practice a trailer. And I was very lucky to be able to have the 3 lessons that I had. But yeah, I didn't have a trailer. So for me, it was about like doing what I could. And that was with what was within my capabilities of setting up my horses for success for the move. That is ultimately what it all comes down to, is setting those 3 horses up for success. And that looked like taking care of their mental and physical health, and also having the sedatives there in case I needed them. Um, so in the end, I did manage to source a lighter paste, a heavier paste, and intramuscular should I need it. Um, so I discussed with Caroline which sedatives I had sourced, and we agreed that we would basically give the lighter paste to them before she arrived. And I had chosen a Saturday to move my horses because I know that first thing on a Saturday it's very quiet where they live, also on a Sunday, but I felt like Saturday was good because then on the Sunday me and my mum could be at the horses together and like take care of them, whereas if it had been Sunday then she wouldn't have been with me on the Monday. So that's kind of how that played out. Because where they live is or where they lived now in the past, it's a really nice place, but it can be a little bit noisy and there can be a lot of unpredictable things happening, like building work or whatever. But on the weekends, I know that there's none of that going on. And it is normally quiet first thing in the morning. So we discussed what time we'd start loading, and we agreed that 9 a.m. was a good time. I asked that nobody came to the horses until they'd gone. So that was really great because that boundary was very well respected, and I asked for only Sharon and Lisa to be there, because that's the only people I wanted initially. And in the end, I actually ended up having one of my helpers there with me too, who's also called Lisa, which is confusing because there's 2 Lisas, but I'm always like helper Lisa and Ringo Lisa. So in the end, I had 3 people there with me on the actual day, and I'm really glad every single one of them was there. I was so incredibly grateful, like, that they were there, because I couldn't have done it without a single one of them there, I don't think. Or, well, we could have still done it, but it wouldn't have been as smooth as it was. And so what I did was I showed up to basically clean them, get everything ready to go in the trailer, in the storage part of the trailer, get the hay nets ready, give them their buckets of food, just make sure that they sort of had their normal routine. And then in consultation with Caroline, we agreed that Fionn and Zirconia would travel together, and Fionn and Morgan would travel together because we were concerned that maybe Zirconia and Fionn would be too heavy, but Zirconia and Fionn was actually how I wanted them to travel, and then Morgan separately because I felt like Morgan could handle stuff on her own, but like Zir would be really good support for Fionn. Um, and she said basically give them the sedative half an hour before she arrives and then just let them be. So just leave them alone and have it as calm and as quiet as possible, to make sure that they are in an as relaxed state in terms of their nervous system as possible. So that's what we did. Um, and my wonderful, wonderful helper, Lisa, who I'll also hopefully have on the podcast at some point, she is just not only an amazing human being, but she took me away for a moment to actually ground and regulate myself. And this ended up being really wonderful in so many ways because I did write about it, but what she did was she helped me ground and be regulated. Um, and it's really interesting from memory what came up after we did sort of body awareness and mindfulness. She talked me through a guided meditation. Basically, what came up was the color orange at one point, which I think is in relation to the sacral chakra, and that is what was showing up in that moment. And the sacral chakra tends to be around creativity, and relates to our feelings, emotions, and yeah, I found that really interesting that that is what came up for me. Um, and then also the gemstone rose quartz kind of came up, and rose quartz is representative of the heart chakra. So together, the sacral chakra and the heart chakra kind of showing up for Fionn, Zirconian Morgan. So I found that really, really powerful. And then a word that kind of came up was peace. And peace not only for the journey, but also peace for their destination and how living in the UK will feel for them. And that's what comes back really beautifully to what Fionn's old owner says, and how like it's where we'll find happiness. And I'll try and touch back on the piece later, but I found it so interesting that the sacral chakra, the heart chakra, and peace came up for me. And yeah, also I had, and I think it's linking to the heart chakra, but I had this awareness and embracing of the love of everybody who I knew, who loves and has known Fionn, Zirconian Morgan. And I really felt in that moment that love, and that actually brought up tears for me, because the power of that love and that support from everybody on that day really held true for us. And I could just feel it. And as I drove actually to Calais in my own car, I had a couple of conversations on the phone with some of those people, and it was so beautiful. Like I really felt everyone was with us throughout that journey. So yeah, it really meant a lot, basically. And I'm really grateful that I had that grounding, sort of mindfulness exercise with Lisa. Then we also had on the day, because I'd asked Poppy to do a communication session with them to try and basically check in with them and make them aware of what was happening. And basically they knew what was happening, but they can't conceptualize it in the same way that we can. But the thing that stood true in her session with them beforehand was this feeling of it being a big thing, but that it also was not a big thing. And I think that's what summarizes the day so perfectly and the experience so perfectly was that, yes, it was a huge thing. Like moving your horses from the Netherlands to the UK after Brexit as well. It's a huge thing because not only is it a long journey, it's also a big paperwork exercise. Like it is a lot to deal with. And we did it. And when I look back on it, I'm like, because of everybody who was there, and because I'd set them up for success, and because I'd taken care of their mental and physical health, and because of my relationship with those three wonderful horses and their relationships with each other as well, everything just flowed. So what was a big thing was not actually a big thing. Um, but it really came down to the humans and the horses involved in even the smallest way in this process. And that is that to me is one of the most beautiful things to come out of this experience is that it's yeah, it's wonderful. And yeah, so the big thing was not such a big thing in the end. Um, and another thing Poppy mentioned was that she tried to give them the feeling of the UK, and I hope she doesn't mind me sharing this because it was really fun um to hear them basically through her. And the word damp or the feeling of damp came up, which made me chuckle because it's damp here too in the Netherlands. So um, that really made me chuckle. But peace, peace is a big thing, I think, for them with this whole experience. Um, but yeah, so we had Poppy's support, and then what's really interesting because I kind of gave her the opportunity to do a live session. Um, whilst they were loading, and I told her the times that they were going to load. And actually, Caroline ended up being a bit late. So actually, when Poppy checked in with them, Caroline was not there yet. And um, what's really interesting is Poppy said to me that she saw, and they didn't know. There was no way that they could have known. Either no one knew anything except after they were loaded and they'd gone, I then checked my messages and then I saw the messages from Poppy, which were sent before Caroline and Justin showed up to load them. And what's really interesting is Caroline and sorry, Poppy did not know that our plan was for Fionn and Morgan to be together and Zir to be separate. But what's really interesting is in Poppy's messages, which she sent me before all the loading happened, she saw Fionn and Zir together and Morgan separate, which is so interesting because what actually happened in the end was we loaded Fionn first, then we got Morgan, and Morgan would not step 1 foot in the trailer with Fionn. Like she just was saying no. And everything I tried to ask her in multiple different ways of asking, and every single time was a no. Caroline tried, Justin tried, I think even Sharon and Lisa tried. It was a big, big no. She was just like, no, I'm not going in this trailer. And then, so we went and got Zir because basically we realized, well, Zir was smaller than Caroline's and Justin thought, so actually Zir could go in the trailer with Fionn. And we loaded her, and it was all fine. And Lisa took care of Fionn, whilst so helper Lisa, just to clarify, she took care of Fionn, whilst I was kind of handling Zir and Morgan. I kind of left her in charge to ground and regulate Fionn because she's really fantastic at that. And I was like, you do your wonderful, amazing Lisa things, whilst I go and see what's going on with Morgan after Zir was loaded because Zir did really well, actually. She was very easy to load. And then we went and get Morgan. And Morgan, there was a little bit of hesitation, but it was really funny because I wasn't with her whilst they started loading, and then I went to go check on her and to help. And Morgan is what I like to call, and this is something I might get into on a podcast on my own, but I like to call her uh what was it? Intention based. So I like to call her intention based. And what I mean by this is if I want her to do a thing where no frustration shows up, that it just flows, I need to basically visualize and hold the intention of the thing that I want her to do in my thought or energy or whatever, and she will just do it. And that is the wonderful thing about Morgan. So it was really funny because I think Caroline said like something to me like, "Oh, if only she'd move her left back leg." And I thought, I just visualized it. I held a little moment and I visualized it. And I didn't do anything, I didn't say anything. I just held that visualization. And she didn't move her left leg, she actually moved her right back leg. And then the same thing happened with her front leg. So Caroline said if only she could move her right front leg or whichever leg it was. And I visualized it, and then she moved the opposite leg, but she moved the leg and she went in. And that was that. And she did great. She was fantastic. So we closed up and off they went. And that was that. I was astounded with how they loaded. I was so proud of them and it could not have gone any better, I don't think. And it only went the way it did because of all the wonderful people who were there in that moment doing the role that they needed to do. And it just flowed and it happened and they were off. And it was really weird. I was like, there they go. And it was wonderful. And then I obviously, well, I had to finish off a few things, pack a few last things, and get changed and then hit the road myself. So I'm now actually back in the UK, and I'm going to carry on the podcast. I didn't record this episode all in one go because I just wanted to make sure I had the energy and the space to do it justice and let everything kind of process and come back and visit it as and when I felt like doing so. So this is now me carrying on the story about, I don't know, maybe a week or so after I recorded the first part, which is fine. But anyway, so I think I was about to get into my car, or like I just finished off the last bits and bobs and was about to hit the road, and I had to get changed as well because I was like, I'm not going to spend however long the journey is in my horse clothes. So I got changed. And yeah, what was really great is Caroline and Justin had a WhatsApp group with my mum and me in as well, and they shared their live locations so we could actually keep an eye on where they were at. And I got a message just to tell me that Fionn, after they set off, was not okay. I wasn't given the details, which is probably a good thing because I was like, I don't really need to know. Just that he was not okay, and so they pulled over just north of Utrecht and gave him so I can't remember if earlier I mentioned there were 3 types of sedatives we were using, or prepared with is a better word, prepared with. There was a light paste, which meant that they could eat, and then there was a heavier paste, which meant they couldn't eat, and then last resort was intramuscular injection. So we had given him, before moving, the lighter sedative paste, and Caroline then gave him the heavier one because he was really not okay. So yeah, and because it takes an hour to take effect, they amazingly waited a whole hour with him and kept him and the other 2, relaxed, and just was really there for them. And yeah, I don't know because I wasn't there, but I just really love that they supported him in that way. And even now it makes me emotional to think about, because I just know they saw he was not okay, and they just took such good care of the three of them whilst the paste would kick in. And it's funny, I'm actually glad upon reflection that I didn't travel with them, that I just went in my car with their stuff and um, went ahead of them in the end. That was kind of the idea anyway, but it didn't take me long to overtake them, because yeah, when I passed them, um, they were still waiting for the pace to kick in. So I just carried on, and I didn't see them, and I sort of gave a little thought to it, and I thought I'm just gonna carry on. um, but yeah, what was really amazing as well was I really felt, I think I mentioned it earlier in the episode, but I really felt the love of everybody who knew and cared about them with me on the journey. And um, one of my really good friends, she actually called me. I think I was in Belgium at the time, and just asked how it was going. And yeah, we had a good little chat and reflected on a few things together. And it was just really nice, because I was alone, like I was physically alone, because I was driving this drive by myself, but I didn't feel alone, and I knew that the horses were in the best possible hands. And I also asked my amazing teacher, Rihanna, to check in with Fionn from a communication point of view. And she told me what was going on for him, which was that he kind of had a headache, and it was like it was a really bright sunny day that they moved, and you've got the darkness of the trailer contrasting with the light coming in, and I think it was like the movement or the sort of flashing of the light, or the intermittent light, because Fionn is very sensitive to light. That was sort of uncomfortable for him. And it's interesting, because if we circle back to Poppy, and the check-in she did, which ended up, we thought it would be live as they were being loaded, but it ended up being not live. But even then, she said Fionn showed her valerian, which I had been giving him. And it's interesting because looking back on it now, I think he was kind of saying that he needed more than what he had in terms of sedative. And actually, the stronger paste did help him, and got him going, really. So that was quite interesting. But going back to Rian and the flashing lights that she was saying, and he sort of, that was bothering him and giving him a bit of headache and making him tired. It's interesting because I did think, should I put a fly mask on him for traveling? Because he'd been wearing, not for the flies, but for UV protection, he had been wearing a fly mask. And then I thought, no, because, it's a trailer, it's darker, it's fine. But actually, on reflection, I think that's the one thing I would change going back. Would I put a fly mask on him? Just so that he's not so bothered by the flashing of the light through the trailer window as the trailer's moving. But yeah, for the rest of the journey, I mean, I went on ahead. I was quite far ahead in the end. I hadn't been on Channel Tunnel in years, and it's really funny because they still have the same announcement that they used years ago. And I was on the top deck of the car train, and I did not like it. I actually felt sick. So that was quite interesting, because I was like, oh, I'll just have a little snooze. And then I was like, no, it's too wobbly for me. And then on the other side, I stopped at the service station to have dinner, and then carried on to the field. And then we just waited. My mum was there making some preparations, and we just waited for them to come. And that was a long wait, because we were just anticipating them coming, and the sun was setting, because I got there at sunset. So I knew they'd be arriving in the dark. And yeah, then they were with us at one point, and We talked about how to unload them. I was really worried, that it was pitch black. You couldn't see anything because it's the countryside, but we did have a half moon, so that helped a bit. And B, I wasn't sure how particularly Fionn would be. But one thing that I think is really amazing from him was, and that really touches my heart, is that Caroline and Justin said that after the heavier pace wore off, they didn't have to sedate him again, because I really thought he'd need intramuscular for the Channel Tunnel, because I really thought that would be too much for him. But he was actually able to come round and be present in the end. And he even showed his personality, like he was kind of being funny with his mouth and like curious to see what Zir was getting, and like poking his little nose through the bottom part of the partition. And it just meant a lot to me that he could show his character to Caroline and Justin. It was just amazing. Like, I'm still getting emotional now reflecting on it. I'm so proud of him and so grateful for them. And yeah, anyway, so when we were unloading them, we talked about what to do, and we had the gate open, and the lorries were parked in the road, and we went for Morgan first. So I had Morgan, and Caroline and Justin had Fionn and Zirconia each. So we got Morgan off first, and she was a bit like really wondering what was going on. She didn't want to move, and she was a bit like with her legs and not quite sure if she could use them again. So she really was like, what's going on here? It was so funny, bless her. And I sort of was like, it's okay, your back legs are still there, you can use them. And then then we opened the box for Fionn and Zir came out first, and Fionn, and it was so obviously Morgan, because at this point the journey was 12 hours in total, and Morgan had been gone basically. For Zir and Fionn, Morgan had been gone, and then for Morgan, her friends had been gone. So actually they weren't initially bothered about the new surroundings. They were just so happy to see each other again, and like I wish I could have captured it, but it was like the realization for the three of them that they were back together, and they were nickering at each other, and it was just one of the most heartwarming things I've ever seen. I was just it was so wonderful, and like it was just like pure joy, and yeah, it was really cute. And then I thought once we got them in the field and closed the gate and let them loose, Fionn would bomb off out of stress and be running all over the place. But actually it was really interesting, because it shows how much of a mother figure Zir is to Morgan and Fionn, because it was so interesting. She was like, they were following her, and she was actually mapping the field. So she'd do a very specific paced trot, and they'd sort of trot behind her, and she did like the diagonal of the field, had a little investigation of one corner, then did a diagonal to another part, and then another diagonal, and all the meanwhile the other two were just following behind her, and then when she'd sort of done her diagonals to check out the full scope of the land, she then just started eating, and she was just like, yeah, we're good, and the other two as well. And I just thought that was so incredible to watch, because she really, like, that was really when who she is and how she is for them, and what she means to them, that really showed up in that moment, and it was incredible. So yeah, we then said goodbye to Caroline and Justin. They headed home. Me and my mum did a few little bits and bobs, and then we headed home too, because it had been an incredibly long day. Like, I'd hardly slept. I think I don't know how much I slept, but I didn't sleep much. And then I woke up early, and I basically got to bed just before midnight. So it was a really, really long day. So that would have been like nearly 1 o'clock in the morning Dutch time. And I went to sleep, and then we went to go visit them the next day, and it was just like really, really weird. I was like, I can't believe they're here. Um, and just, yeah, how to say how it feels now. It's been a month basically since their move, and it's just this peace. I talked earlier about how when I did the grounding exercise with my helper, how the word peace came up for me. And it's like that gift of peace and this sort of place where time is just gone and the outside world is just gone. And it's like, just, yeah, I find it so hard to describe it. It's just wonderful. There was a moment the following morning or afternoon, the following day, like the day after they moved, they all gathered round the water trough and just snoozed together, standing up. It took them a few days to actually lie down, sleeping, but they were standing round the water trough, and it was just like, I've talked about it on my Instagram, but when I went to the Journey On podcast summit last year in Birmingham, I got to hear from Katrina MacDonald, and she talks about these horse circles, and she has these imaginal horse circles, and that's kind of what her gift is to the world, in a way. And when she talks about them, and I sort of read about them, and I'm in a Facebook group for it, I didn't get what this horse circle thing meant. But I feel like since this move, and since that moment that they were around the trough, I feel like that's when my horse circle was born. And in that horse circle are, obviously my horses, but also all those people who were with me on that day, and whose love that I felt on the day of the move, and their horses too. And it's like that space outside of the physical realm for me has been born now, and it feels amazing. And my horses are just that, like, it's like they've been there for years. Like they just are so relaxed, and yeah, I just can't. I really want to give you the gift of explaining what it's like, but I just can't do it justice. And I'm just so happy. And yeah, I went walking yesterday with Zirconia for the first time. Like, when I was there before on the second week, because I stayed 2 weeks with them in the UK, and on the second week I just wanted to see how it felt for them to take Morgan out, and also then separately to take Zirconia out. And there was quite a bit of stress, and they weren't ready then, but they are ready now. And I just had this feeling yesterday just to just do it again, basically. And we got almost to the forest with Morgan, and then with Zia we actually got to the forest, and she's just this totally different horse. Like, in the Netherlands there was always this underlying stress that she couldn't seem to move past, and couldn't, like, if we went to because we had to cross the town to get to the forest, and crossing the town she was okay-ish, but in the forest it was like she was disconnected and not present and just really not okay. And yesterday she just was with us the whole time, and she was really into it, and like really setting her pace, and showing us that she wanted to do this. And for me, that's all riding out and walking out has only ever been about, or is my ultimate goal with them, is to give them enrichment and to enrich our relationship and our lived experience through exploring the outside world, because there's so much to see and smell and feel. And I want to give that to them. And now it feels like that dream is now completely achievable, and we actually achieved it yesterday. So yeah, it's wonderful, and I'm really looking forward to the life now that I am going to have with them here in the UK. And I'm hoping that I will be able to share some of that with you all through Instagram, and maybe recording some sessions just by myself, kind of sharing with where we're at with everything. But yeah, it's just, yeah, I think I just want to wrap this episode up just by saying thank you to absolutely everybody. Thank you to Poppy. Thank you to Rihanna. Thank you to Caroline and Justin. Thank you to Sharon and Lisa at my old place. To my helper Lisa, and just absolutely everybody who was there with me on that day. Like, I can't tell you enough how those of you who were with me, how much I felt that love and how much it meant to me. And it was part of setting them up for success. And that we did. we did it. We moved from the Netherlands to the UK in the best possible way we could have done. So thank you very much, and until next time, have lots of fun with your horses and experiencing the joy of these marvelous creatures. I think before I wrap this episode up, I want to circle back to something that we did. Gosh, when would it have been? I think it was in January. I asked the helper of Sharon to check in with Fionn and see how he is, because this was after he started to be quite difficult to work with on the ground with our Liberty work, and I felt a bit stuck, so I wanted to see what was going on for him. And she asked him to draw a card from a deck of oracle cards, and I'm looking at it now, and it's actually the art for this episode, and it's of a girl, and she seems to be in a sleep-like state, maybe even an angel of some sort. And the card says memories, so cherish memories of loved ones, and you're sort of seeing into her mind, and there's these pictures of and there's this thatched cottage, and two squirrels. There's sort of these images of family. There's hills and hay, which reminds me very much of Somerset, actually, where we'll eventually live. And then if you sort of move across, there's what looks like wisteria, maybe lavender. There's these two doves cuddling. There's a man and a girl or woman embracing. And there's two horses just to the right of the man's head, scratching each other's backs, which could quite frankly be Zirconia and Morgan. And then, then you've got some more animals in the picture. You've got some blue tits, some chicks being fed, butterflies. And it just really, to me, captures the image or the feeling of what life here in the UK will be like, both for me and for them. And circling back to what Fionn's old owner said, it's like, here I can finally feel full happiness, and therefore so can they. And we have that opportunity now to honour that and to experience that together. And I think this card now, looking back on it, after everything that's happened, it holds that feeling in the card. And then what stood out to me about this card is the little white horse with the pink head collar. And that little white horse with the pink head collar is funny because Fionn is white and he has a pink head collar, and there is a girl resting on his back, and yeah, it just spoke to me. It's like, that's Fionn, and this is about our life in the UK. So yeah, I think I ordered the set of oracle cards after the reading, and yeah, I think I might frame that one, because it really captures everything and how this all feels. So on that note, I'm going to wrap up this episode. Wherever you are in the world, be true, be grounded, be kind, show empathy, show compassion, hold true to yourself and who you are, and embrace the wonderful world that is life with your horses as a human of horses. Take care.
Time before you walked into my life, you took the broken parts of me and made it all alright. There's an easiness to your grace that I will never know, and every day this feeling only grows, and every moment with you just bleeds into one. Your easy smile greets my eyes just like the morning sun, a reflection of my soul, one heart that beats for two. Just know, my love, that I will carry you.